Welcome, Sergej. It's a pleasure to have you here at the Data Science Conference 2022 in Belgrade.
Okay, pleasure to be here.
So your position is Chief Data Scientist at EPAM Systems.
That's true.
So could you talk a bit more about your role, what you do, and how you got there?
Okay, that's easy. So actually, inside EPAM, we have multiple tracks of development, technical people. So we have so-called few managers tracks like delivery manager, project manager, and resource manager. So I can go deeply, but it's not about, let's say, topic of this conference and technicality. And we have few technical or relatively technical track. We have business track, which is kind of consultant guys. So those guys, it's a ex-data scientist, but their focus mostly not about technology solutions, but they focus mostly about, let's say, providing some consultancy and selling projects and helping business to understand what we can do from technology point of view. So those guys are kind of wide. I mean wide, like we have wide experience, but not that deep in some specific domains. Our main technical tracks, which I belong to, it's more technical one. So it's about delivering specific challenging technical solution, learning, let's say, specific algorithm, developing specific algorithm, and maybe deep learning, maybe some classical ones, but complicated, technically challenging, and so on. And the third one, which we don't have at the moment for data scientists, but have for data engineers, and in future would have for machine learning engineers, it's solution architect. So it's kind of in the mix of technology and business, but not that, let's say, business one comparing to previously mentioned. And together with this managerial one, we have, let's say, big wide range of paths. Me personally worked as a technical person quite a few years. So I joined to EPAM about 6 years ago, and I joined as a regular data scientist, so typical data scientist. I grew to lead, and after that, I decided to select my path. So I decided to go by technology, let's say, track, but at the moment also because of this, let's say, relocation process and so on, and establishing of new location, which actually Serbia is new for us, as maybe you know, as well as Samovar. I'm partially working as a resource manager guy and guy who responsible for developing people, hiring people, and so on. So my, let's say, responsibility is kind of mixed. So part-time I'm working for the project, developing our expertise, as well as developing our people.
Your talk here is about starting deep learning projects without sufficient amounts of data. So could you talk a bit about the main idea behind this talk?
The main idea would be relatively simple. So I decided to show some potential approaches which could be used as a, let's say, good approaches to kick off a deep learning project in case if you don't have enough labeling data or don't have budget for doing this labeling. As I mentioned, it could be many different cases, but typical use case, then you working for, in our company, for example, working for new customer or let's say stakeholder for which you previously didn't work. So you don't have possibility to spend a lot of money to specific project, I mean, even for labeling. And because of that, you need to do some job, providing some deliveries, but with relatively short time constraints and not having, let's say, significant amount of effort and money into this labeling part. So, and main focus was to show some tricks, which oftenly uses some pre-trained model, maybe already labeled data set, but this data set could be turned out to solve specific task, which kind of not typical for initial idea of mentioned model.
Yeah. And going on this, what is, in your opinion, the bigger obstacle for a company that wants to implement a deep learning project? Insufficient data or wrongly labeled data?
Actually, I would say both, but wrong labeled data much more, let's say, problematic sometimes just because many company had illusion that everything from data point of view is fine. So it's actually not about deep learning only, because there are many situations then you could came to customer and customer could say to you, okay, I have good data quality, I have good labeling quality and everything is fine. But oftenly it's illusion in some, let's say, parts it could be fully untrue, it could be partially true, so it depends on particular situation. But wrongly labeled data, I guess, even worse than not having labeled data at all. Because if you don't have, you as your own can establish some process, and you would control this. Actually, we did few projects for manufacturing, and we started this from scratch and did, let's say, good job in establishing process how we should label data. Because if you control this, it's not a problem. So it could cost you some money, but it's not a problem. But if your customer believes that you have good data quality and in reality it's not, that's a problem.
In your experience, how much do you think companies are actually utilizing deep learning to fully benefit from their internal data? So even those that are doing it very well, how much of it do you actually think they're utilizing the potential of deep learning?
I guess at the moment, highly likely less than 20% of potential, because I could provide you some examples. Don't, let's say, sharing particular clients, but yeah, we had a story that actually one client in media and entertainment domain didn't use, let's say, properly possibility to run their models on real users, though they have millions of them. So they have really possibility to, let's say, doing fair A/B testing, doing many things to measure reaction of guys. And when they came to these particular clients, they didn't even properly collect this data from their devices. So they own devices and their own process, but they didn't organize properly storing this data, not using it.
Well, yeah. I do think that's a trend that's going around a bit, using data in AI. And on that, what do you think are the benefits of attending conferences like this for businesses, and then also for academics and other attendees?
Yeah, let's start from the first question about AI. I prefer to use word ML because, as often could be mentioned, so AI in slides and ML in production. And speaking about attending this conference, so for me, again, so it could be different reasons. Yeah, business guys could come here to do three things. First of all, to hire some guys who could be interesting. For example, there were some talks from academia, really interesting, for example, in computer vision, in some other domains. And if I were, let's say, representative from some product company working in the same domain, I would say, why I don't hire this guy, for example. He did fantastic job here, maybe, yeah, sometimes he could say a little bit better than it's reality, but okay, still he can't do his job. Second point is networking, because actually you maybe know you better than myself that Serbia is really developing fast comparing to maybe 2 years ago, just because at the moment, because of a massive relocation process, and not only people but business relocation process, you have really challenging, let's say, challenging universe of different companies, and it should boost your market. And again, one of my purpose was somehow establish better networking inside Serbia. So maybe some of these companies would be our competitors, that's fine, but we should know this, let's say, playground, because we sometimes can compete, but sometimes we can collaborate for some things, for developing local communities, for developing local talents, for developing some joint solution, maybe not only for business, but some social things, because as it was mentioned for some talks, I hope that in whole this story, which is beneficial from business perspective, would boost our social things here as well, like services, like infrastructure, and many other things.
Yeah. Thank you for your insights. I do hope you've enjoyed the conference so far, and hope to see you next year as well.
Yeah,
thank you.
Hope so. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the interview.
Welcome to Data Science Conference Europe. My name is Smirnov Sergej. I'm Chief Data Scientist from EPAM. Let's change the world through data.